Always trust.
Turkiye, a neighbor to Iran facing the risk of conflict spilling across its borders if the US-Israel offensive doesn't cease. A NATO power, a rising defense exporter, and one of the Muslim world's most influential economic and geopolitical actors. As Turkey's top diplomat visits Qatar for high-level talks on regional security, tensions between Washington and Tehran remain unresolved. So what role does Ankara aim to play in this rapidly shifting region? Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan talks to Al Jazeera. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Mr. Minister, President Trump has rejected Iran's latest response to the U.S. peace proposal, while Tehran is warning of retaliation if there are new strikes. From Ankara's perspective, is the ceasefire effectively collapsing, and what is Turkey's most urgent concern now?
Well, I think our most urgent concern is to see the ceasefire is holding, actually. This is what we care about at the moment, because the alternative of the ceasefire is going back to war, which nobody would like to see that scenario again, because right now the entire world economy and energy security is suffering as a result of this war. So everybody is hoping to see a negotiated settlement to end this war. I think there has been some ups and downs during the talks, and this is the nature of the talks, the negotiation, I think. And so the recent disagreement, I think, one of the downs, but I am sure that it will continue to go on.
So you're optimistic that despite the American rejection, so the ceasefire is going to continue to hold?
Well, the American side is rejecting what is being proposed, but there is always retailoring of the proposals, rewording, so either by the mediators or by suggesting to the sides to review their wording, the positioning, everything else. I think it's possible to come up with a new acceptable wording.
So Turkey has kept channels open with Tehran, with Washington, with the regional mediators. Are you now actively mediating or preparing to step in if both sides need an intermediary? So what is Turkey's role right now?
Well, as you know, right from the beginning, especially since 2010, actually, Turkey has been one way or another trying to engage with the mediation process. But now the recent episode is very well conducted by our Pakistani brothers and sisters. Our job is, together with other regional countries, including Qatar, to help them to really perform their best to mediate this very, very difficult task. So what we are trying to do, we have our contacts and communications with both sides, and plus amongst each others. You know, sometimes during the mediation, the most difficult thing is when you get stuck. You are in search of creative ideas. Sometimes the parties cannot provide these ideas. Sometimes the mediator cannot come up with some creative idea. So you need some outside partners, trusted partners. What we are doing together with other regional countries, not directly maybe with the sides, we speak to the sides directly, but we also speak amongst ourselves as regional countries, you know, because this is utmost important, first of all, for the region. And therefore, the regional countries are doing their best actually to provide some support to the ongoing process.
So I was actually about to ask about the regional response. So are the regional countries coordinating meaningfully to stop the escalation, or the response to a certain extent is still fragmented?
Well, as you can see, there are some conflicting reportings as well, because this is totally normal as a result of the nature of the war and the way that it took shape. So we see some skirmishes taking place from time to time. And unfortunately, we see that UAE recently has been attacked. Some other countries have been attacked. So in general, the ceasefire is at the moment is holding. But there is a coordination. I wouldn't say maybe a strong coordination between all countries. Some countries, they coordinate, including Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, we coordinate. But at least there is a meaningful communication and consultations between the regional countries, and including Egypt, Jordan. We all talk to each other to see where we are and how can we really contribute better to ongoing process.
So now you're in Qatar for talks on Iran war and its impacts in the Gulf. So what's Turkey now trying to achieve through the coordination with Qatar?
What we are trying to do, we are actually doing a lot. I mean, the way that Qatar operates actually is very much similar to what Turkey is doing for a number of years. Actually, our coordination on mediation affairs goes back to more than a decade, actually. Wherever there is a regional crisis, Turkish, Qatari coordination and joint effort is there. The way that similarity is taking place, I was going to tell that, because most of the job that we do is behind the scenes, not necessarily reported. And this is the way that we really appreciate how Qatar is operating, how Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman and Sheikh Tamim, they are not after a credit, they are after a tangible result. This is the way we operate, because ultimately what we want to see is the end of any given problem. This time we have the problem of the Gulf. Now, the last time we had something else. The other time we had another issue in Libya. So we have excellent coordination.
So if the diplomacy fails, what are the immediate risks for Turkey? Is it the border security, the energy prices, the refugee flows, or economic disruption, or a regional war, or all of the above?
Well, if diplomacy fails, God forbid, if the sides go back to war again, there are a number of scenarios depending on which scenario that might take place. We may end up with different results. But first of all, in terms of energy and energy security, we as Turkey, specifically we are talking about Turkey, we don't heavily rely on Strait of Hormuz. There are 3 major pipelines bringing oil and gas to Turkey from Central Asia, from Iran, from Russia, from Azerbaijan. So because we are not carrying our energy through with ships. So, but nevertheless, we are not affected in terms of energy security, but we are badly affected in terms of energy prices, just like everybody's been affected. But if the war continues, depending on certain scenarios, we might end up with some unwanted results, so which I don't want to even voice here now. But we are trying to do our best to really...
the border security or the refugee flows or some of the concerns?
All of them.
You just talked about the Strait of Hormuz, which has been one of the most dangerous pressure points in this conflict. So Iran is insisting on a new maritime regime, while the United States and the Gulf countries are saying that the status quo must be preserved. So what kind of maritime arrangement will Ankara support?
Well, we certainly support what the majority actually would like to see, because
which is?
Status quo before the war was the way that everybody was enjoying, actually. So introducing a new regulation, which may not be accepted by the vast majority, might be a new source of a new conflict, so which we don't want to see this, because it might set up example for other straits or choke points. And and the world economy actually cannot take this quite easily. So therefore, we want to see a free passage of all the ships, just like it was happening before the war.
So the pre-war status quo is the arrangement that Turkey will support.
Yeah, we would like to see. Yes.
So you just recently said that Turkey will consider joining the international efforts such as demining in the Strait of Hormuz if the US and Iran have an agreement. So what will Turkey be willing to contribute, and which kind of, or what kind of mechanism are you suggesting?
Well, we are not suggesting any mechanism. We are saying, we are responding some proposals to form some mechanism addressing the problems of Strait of Hormuz. There are different definitions of the problem, and there are different solutions to these problems. At least those ideas are being discussed. We initially saw a French and British initiatives. They merged later on their separate initiatives into one, and we participated all the meetings, and we are seeing all the ideas and proposals, counter proposals. But eventually, what we would like to see is, as Turkey actually, our position is, I hope that Iran and the United States, they conclude their talks in a good manner, and they reach an understanding and agreement. And then, if additional assistance is needed, so we can be there. But without any agreement, without any diplomatic result, I think our engagement will not be meaningful or will not be positive.
What will be your recommendation for the United States and Iran as practical steps to come to a peaceful solution?
Well, for the last, more than 20 years, they've been discussing the nuclear files, which was the original source of the war. And up until last year, they've avoided engaging the hot war, the both sides. I think they've seen the worst now after engaging war, a full-scale war between Iran and the United States with the provocation of Israel. So now I think there is nothing left by the sides to experience. So I think it is time to stop now, to find a real solution to this problem, which is affecting not only two respective countries, but also the entire globe. So I think there is enough will now and intention, this is our observation, on both sides to stop the war and to go back a normal life between sides, because it is prone to escalation, it is prone to further tragedy and drama, and a negative effect for both world economy and the regional stability. All in all, we think that both sides can actually succeed in reaching a permanent settlement.
So this war is not only about Iran and the United States. So if no agreement is reached, its effects could reshape the Gulf, Syria, Eastern Mediterranean, even NATO's southern flank. So is there a new regional order in the making?
Well, it should be. There should be. This is what we've been discussing even before the war with the regional countries, drawing bitter lessons from the last 30 years of wars, terrorism, instability, occupations, and everything that took place in our region. I think regional capacity is mature enough to really come up with creative ideas and to implement them.
How would Turkey position itself in this new emerging regional order? Are you going to be leading, acting like a regional hegemon, or as a middle power, or a country that is going to be coordinating their efforts?
The word hegemon is something that we are trying to delete from the vocabulary of this region. What we've been trying to tell is that most of the time the culture here was either domination or submission. Instead of this, we would like to see the introduction of cooperation. No submission, no domination, but cooperation amongst the regional countries based on the respect of our territorial integrity, sovereignty, and security.
You recently traveled to Damascus as President Zelensky met Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara in talks that included Turkiye. So is Turkey now becoming the gatekeeper for new security arrangements between Ukraine and Syria?
No, I wouldn't say so, because it was just a convenient meeting between two sides, because Ukraine was new to the region and Turkey has been there for a long time. I think it was just it's a good meeting between three countries. And so we have excellent relations with Syria, good relations with Ukraine for a long time. So I think it was good to have both countries to have conversation about possible areas of cooperation. But Ukraine is not the only country. I think now Syria is successfully enjoying the good relations with the rest of the region and the countries. You know, yesterday there was a good result in the EU as well. So I think Syria is a success story for our region. This is exactly what I was referring when I say regional ownership. Mm-hmm. The countries of the region came together and they identified a uniform position vis-à-vis with Syria, and Syria responded to this position very successfully. And I think now everybody is enjoying a stability and security in Syria. Mm-hmm. So Syria used to be the place of civil war, a cradle for terrorism, mm-hmm. and a threat to all the neighboring countries. Now, alhamdulillah, it's all gone. Now Syria is a stable country, posing no threat to anybody, mm-hmm. and all the refugees are coming back mm-hmm. From different countries, including from Turkiye, and this is a big success.
But what are the challenges in the state-building process in Syria, and also what are the main challenges, the risk that Syria is facing during the nation-building process?
There are a couple of things. I think, first of all, if you ask me this question last year, this time, I would have said, for instance, there was a problem of unifying the armed groups, which was, overwhelmingly succeeded, and now armed groups are under one command and control. There was a problem of SDF, and still that problem is being sorted out, and as a result of an agreed roadmap. But now there is a relative peace in the country in terms of different ethnicities, nationalities, and religions. There is no reported fight, a major fight. But what is more worrying for all of us is the intention of Israel.
Yes, indeed. So Israel continues to operate in Syria.
Yeah, the elephant in the room is Israel.
And so Turkey has its own security concerns and saying that Israeli actions are destabilizing Syria. So do you see a real risk of direct confrontation between Turkey and Israel in Syria?
I think what I want to make it very clear that the Israelis' action in Syria should not be first presented or identified within the perspective of the Turkish security concerns. Mm-hmm. It is violating a nation state called Syria, territorial integrity and sovereignty, and it's occupying it. It's a major national security threat for Syria. And just like it is a national security threat for Lebanon and West Bank, the Gaza. So therefore, I think all the Arab countries, the Muslim countries, the regional countries, the Europeans, everybody else should come together and confront this policy, because nobody would like to see additional renewed influx of refugees coming out of Syria and going to all other countries, including Europe. So Israel should stop being a source of and cause of instability, wars, destruction, and mass migration.
Mm-hmm. So Turkey is a NATO member, a regional power, a Black Sea actor, and also it is a country with deep ties to the Muslim world. How would you define Turkey's foreign policy doctrine today?
Well, if you look at our foreign policy today, we have relations geographically and historically and in every modern way sector possible with different geographies, because we occupy geography in Europe. We occupy in a place geographically in the southern Caucasus. If you look at our eastern borders, we have a border with Iran. It goes through all the Asia. If you look at our southeastern border, Iraq and Iran, it goes up down to what is called by the West as Middle East. And if you go up to look at the north, we have Black Sea. If you look at south, we have Mediterranean. So we have to have multi-geographical and multi-dimensional strategic orientation policies, because the strategic orientation and balances of Europe and Balkans is different than the South Caucasus. South Caucasus is different than the Mediterranean. Mediterranean is different than the Middle East. So we are carefully navigating our foreign policy in different regions with same values and same principles. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, if you look at the history of his last 25 years of ruling and elected by the people again and again, in foreign policy, whatever we are trying to do inside in Turkey in terms of economic development and political stability and increasing prosperity of the people and the widespread infrastructure and public services for the depleted people, we want to see the same thing in our region for a long time. You know, that's why we are working very hard on mediation in every conflict in our region and beyond our region. So we want to see development. We want to see regional peace for Balkans, for South Caucasus, for Middle East, for Asia, for Black Sea. That's why we are actively participating in the ceasefire talks between Ukraine and Russia, because Black Sea is our immediate neighborhood. That's why we have established Balkan Peace Platform for Balkans, not to see renewed conflicts and instabilizing movements in the Balkans. That's why we are doing our best to be more responsible in Iraq and to bring stability in Syria and to really help Iran to reach a ceasefire. If you look at our political behavior in the region, it is consistent and it is really trying to help bring stability
to the region. So does Turkey still trust the Western security architecture, or is Ankara now building a parallel network of middle power alliances with the countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Egypt, Syria, Ukraine?
As I said, for every different geographic regions that we occupy, we have different strategic perspective. Sometimes those strategic perspective might be challenging each other, but I think this is some of the challenges we need to deal with. For European security, I think NATO is very much essential. For a long time, NATO has been about not only a deterrence. I think deterrence will be the second important thing for NATO. I think it is the most important merit of NATO is to maintain the peace and cooperation between member states in Europe. You know what? Until the establishment of NATO, right after the Second World War, you saw a lot of wars between European countries. So when NATO was established during the Cold War, you know, the countries committed each other to their security, territorial integrity, and sovereignty. And
so
major risk of the war.
Interdependency is actually bringing security to the transatlantic alliance.
And immediately you ended up with even a regional stability. So, and it was led by the Americans. It led to the creation of European Community, then the European Union. Now there is a talk of American disengagement from European security.
How do you assess the future of this transatlantic alliance, particularly while the United States talking about a detachment or reduction in the engagement?
Well, the United States has been voicing its objections and criticism for a long time. Not started with with President Trump. Before President Trump, actually, there was other president like President Obama, but at different levels and on different subjects. But mainly, they were telling that European countries should own their own share accordingly. Otherwise, you know, leaving everything to be burdened by the United States is not fair. So it's not helping anybody's interest. Now, I think Europeans have understood this very fact. It's been very much highlighted. So it has been understood, but they are now increasing their defense spendings. They are trying to strengthen their defense industry base. But there are some other problems as well. The definition of European security is being relatively is not being agreed now, because there are two Europes under NATO umbrella. One Europe is European Union. The other one is NATO members, but they are not members of European Union, like Turkiye, like Norway, like Iceland, like Albania, like Montenegro, like Macedonia, those countries under NATO roof, but they are not member of European Union. But some countries might be member of European Union. But nevertheless, for the time being, those two different spheres should have a joint understanding on how to come up with a collective European security architecture. This is the problem now. Under the European Union roof, there is a discussion. There are decisions taken by European Union countries, and now they have started implementing it to increase their defense spendings and to strengthen defense industry base. But what about the rest of the countries in Europe?
Those who are which are the part of the NATO, but not part of European Union.
Yes.
Okay.
So NATO, up until now, was an umbrella organization. Actually, was navigating all these differences one way or another. But now, even within NATO, we are having this diverging interests and diverging structures.
So my final question. So there is an internal dispute within the NATO. And do you think that is structural, or it is because of the leadership or the administration's behavior in the United States?
Well, it can be both ways. If the United States decides to withdraw further from the transatlantic security but stays in NATO, I think we may end up a semi-structural problem. United States still in, but some gap should be filled by some other countries. And I think in the upcoming Ankara summit of NATO in July, the first week of July, it is therefore very important for the future of NATO. So we're preparing ourselves for this summit, and I hope we will get some good results.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, thank you for talking to us.
Well, thank you for having me.